Hey, welcome back, everybody. Coffee Buzz Friday today is brought to you by Dunn Brothers Coffee. Unbelievable burritos.
Oof.
They're unbelievable.
They're so good.
I don't know if the chain of Dunn Brothers gets out of Minneapolis. I'm not sure of that. Do you know that?
Oh, yeah, they do.
They do?
Yeah, they're.
Is it a nationwide thing?
Yeah.
Sure. So I thought that it was just a Minneapolis thing.
Let's go White Bear.
So, yeah, we got the Class AA quarterfinal hockey game in the background. Steve's got White Bear today. I got Blaine Bengals. And so it's 0-0 here in the first. They played a tight first 2 to 3 minutes of hockey. The ice looked a little big for these kids.
The stage looked big. The kids were skating their hearts out. We had one guy, he came up and gave the double chest pound kiss up to the sky. He was pretty aggressive. The all hockey hair team is looking strong this
future
year.
entrepreneur that kid was. So the boys are skating. We got Hockey Minnesota here all March, and it's good stuff. We're getting to the end of winter. It's 8 degrees here, March 5th or March 6th, whatever day it is.
12 inches
7th,
coming.
March 7th.
A foot plus coming on Saturday night.
Yes.
We're having a ball, folks.
So we're going to do a coffee buzz. We're going to have at it. The M&M boys are rocking it today. So McGuiggan and Martin, McGuiggan also known as the Bull, and then the Otter. We're going to try to get the Otter to jump out of his shell a little bit and get a little lion into him and join the realm of lions as we go at each other here for a little bit on Coffee Buzz. So enjoy, folks. Go ahead, Nolan. First question.
How would you define genius?
How would you define genius?
How would you define genius? Well, Lion, to me, the genius would be somebody who does something that I can't even comprehend. So, like, whoever, like television, we got the state high school hockey tournament going on.
Yeah.
We talk about this
We're
all the
going
time.
off there 5 minutes, by the way.
So, okay. Somebody found a way to get images to fly through the air and go onto a television. Like, if somebody told me figure that out, I would have no chance. So whoever did that is a genius. Does that make sense? So, like, if your brain can't even comprehend how to begin,
Yeah.
that person who figured that out is a genius.
So then how do they get that trait? Is that just a natural born trait of geniusy?
Has to be.
So geniuses are it's just built into you.
Yeah, it's like a phenomenal athlete.
It's like a LeBron James.
Yeah, it's like a Harvey Martin, a LeBron James, a Randy Moss.
Sure.
Genius, phenomenal athletes.
So defining geniusy in your state of mind is somebody who created like television or electricity or a light bulb or space, getting into space. So, okay, so like, do you know the Wright Brothers story of the plane?
Sure.
Well, think about
The
this.
Dunn brothers or the Wright brothers here?
The Wright Brothers. So in the Wright Brothers and how they discovered the plane out of Dayton, Ohio. Could be a little off here, but I know you played that baseball school in the conference.
Wright State.
Yeah. And I'm going to be a little off, but not too far off. And I know that when they were discovering flight, the Wright brothers, I believe, didn't really have anybody else that was helping them. So they were just figuring it out together. I don't think they had much money. They were just kind of figuring out how to do this, how to create flight, the science behind it, the numbers behind it. And then, meanwhile, while that was happening, there was like another group, and this is where I'm screwing it up, out of like New York or a big city.
They were competing.
Yeah, they were competing, and the big group had like a bunch of money. So they were publicizing that they were trying to discover flight. And so they had like all the resources, they had all the technology at that time. And it was getting noted. So like the newspaper was charting it, like they had a fan base and
Tons of followers.
They had the whole thing going. While these Wright brothers were just grinding it out, coming up with stuff on their own. They were thinking, right? They were geniuses. And then all of a sudden, when it came to flight time, the people who were getting publicized for it, I believe out of New York, we'll have to look up after this who these people were, and they failed where the Wright brothers achieved. And then the Wright brothers like accounted that towards like meaning and purpose, and that they had to go through like perseverance to like do it on their own and had to believe and fail on their own. Where these other guys failed once, and then all the followers were like, it didn't work. See what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so would that mean that those people are not geniuses and the Wright brothers are geniuses, or would it be that they just hung with it? Like, could all of us discover how to make TV, or have all of us just not stuck with trying to discover TV?
Okay, and that's fair. I'm going to use that specific example because a plane, like if someone were to like figure out how to fly, I'd be smart enough to look at a bird, look how a bird flies, and like start there. I would have a starting point. Like, you know what I'm saying? Like, you've seen
so
things
does that
fly.
make you a genius?
Oh no, I got a 21 on the ACT.
Right, but you could see a bird flying and go, okay, there's wings, and now they're not flapping, but they're still flying. So obviously you would comprehend gravity and be like, well, then how are they not just dropping, right? But essentially, like in the air, you become like glue in the air, right? Like the air keeps you up ultimately. So then you could start asking yourself questions. You keep learning about, okay, well, how are those birds flying without flapping their wings? And then you'd have to go to a scientist or someone, a meteorologist or somebody who understands that, and be like, oh, why does a bird do this? And then someone could tell you all the math behind it. And you could just keep asking a bunch of questions, and then all of a sudden make this decision and be like, oh, that's how we're going to create planes. But then you would define that as geniusy, but really you just stuck with an idea long enough.
I get what you're saying, but no.
But you don't like it?
No, I don't like it. It's kind of, it's like holes when that guy figures out the shoe smell. I don't think that guy's a genius. I think he just got lucky.
So there you go, folks. Geniusy is either luck or you're born with it. So best of luck on your road to geniusy. Next question.
Can money buy happiness?
Absolutely.
Yeah, absolutely. I think money can buy happiness. Oh, you go first.
Okay, so I have actually this is something I've been thinking about a lot lately.
Sure.
Because Dave Williams told me one day that a study was done that at $75,000 a year, you've reached your maximum happiness financially. So like anything
so
you make
define
over
that before you go deeper into it.
So like the way that I understood that
Yeah.
was that once you reach that point, anything that you actually need in life, you can have. And every cent that you make, every dollar you make over that is just going to take you into the next tier of wanting things. So instead of wanting this table, I want the table that costs $2,000.
Sure.
Instead of wanting that chair, I want the upgraded version. And it says that it would be a never-ending progression, a never-ending raising
after 75,000.
After 75,000. But I think that theory is true. Mm-hmm. But I think that there's a number higher than that allows for you to do like get a cabin, buy a jet ski.
And that would make you happy.
I think that having those things, like if you had children and you could take them to your cabin and they could go on the jet skis and you could family bond through that financial investment, then yes. I don't think literally having a jet ski makes you happy, but having
can't you
those
buy
things,
a cabin and a jet ski making $75,000 a year?
You maybe, but you couldn't have vacations. You couldn't just go on a family trip twice a year.
What if you are minimalist and live in a tiny house and you make $75,000 a year?
Well, now I can't have a family because my kid's not grown up in a tiny house.
So that's your decision, though.
Well, that's every normal person's decision. And if someone did get a tiny house, and everyone who's listening knows I'm talking to you, you at some point would have a child, and that child would be inside that house, and you hate people.
Yeah.
So where would you go to get away from your child? Even to be with your wife.
I would go into my treehouse in the back.
So now you have a treehouse, and are you living in this state?
If I wanted to.
Okay, so now we have a tiny house, and then we have a tree house.
Sure.
Is the tree house insulated?
Yeah.
Okay. So you have multiple houses.
Just a tree house and a tiny house.
Do you think that that's healthy for a kid?
Yeah, because I'll mold his mind to geniusy.
Oh, God. Okay, let's hear about it.
I would mold his mind to understand the concept of living in a tiny house. You have a bed, you have a roof, get food, drink water, make sure you learn how to breathe, and work out, move every day, and get some good sleep, and that'd be it.
I love your parents more than anything in the world.
Sure.
Your dad specifically is my best friend.
Yeah.
Do you think growing up, if you put you three in a tiny house and 16-year-old Harv, that you would survive?
Yeah, we had to. We would have to. No other choice.
Do you think you would still have the relationship you have with them now?
I think that's all perspective. We could. Anyone can figure it out. Anyone could do it. Just a matter of perspective. It's just not. It's not normal to think that perspective.
I think that you can't teach someone to want space. That's like when people were growing in a little tribe and they had no idea that there was an outside world. There's always like this inkling in the back of your brain, like, I need to go do something. There's more. Like, I want to go do something else.
Yeah.
So no matter what you told your kid, he would be influenced, or she would be influenced by the outside world enough where they realized they didn't want to live in a small space. And they would say, we should probably make some more money so that I can live in a little bit bigger house.
Yeah, I mean, that's all hearsay because we don't have an example. If I had a tiny house and a tree house and my kids loved it, we'd be an outlier. As we know through research, you can't study outliers. So going back to the original...
Nolan, put your mask back on.
That better be blurred. What are you doing
God,
over there, Nolan?
go tanning.
Jeez. We're trying to figure out the solutions to money here.
Give me a headache.
No, I think money, I love the theory of $75,000 and plus is happiness. I think at a certain point, once you're making so much money, like a millionaire who like needs to make $3 million to be happy, or like even making $200K to make $250K to be happy, like essentially then you're just desiring pleasures.
For sure.
And then money would be something that buys you pleasure in the long run if you have a significant amount of it. But I don't think in the long run of it, it should be like an attractiveness towards happiness.
No.
I definitely think that, like, let's call it how it is. If you're making $16,000 a year and you're living in America, you're probably grinding, you know? So like if, now obviously in other parts of the world, you'd be super rich with that. But then look at the quality of life in other parts of the world, right? So it's like, you know, with that research, and I remember I was a part of that conversation with Dave, like that makes sense to me. Like if you're making $75K, $80K or so, you're probably a lot happier because you have security, you have the ability to grow other people in your family, you have time to expand, you can buy something else that brings happiness or brings people together. But then after that, I think as you get up into higher levels, if that is like your objective for happiness, then you're missing the point. And I think it turns more into just like pleasurables.
I agree 100%.
There's my answer. Keep your mask on, Otter, and ask the next question. That better be blurred out, by the way.
Why are people so confident in beliefs they can't prove?
Oh, that's a great question. Why are people so confident in beliefs they can't prove? My immediate thought to that is just the human ego or want to be right. We all just want to be right. Is that what you're thinking?
I was thinking along the same lines, just in a different way, like emotional experiences.
Okay.
So like I'm going to tie an emotional experience to something and say, well, this is what it was for me, so that has to be right. Like, this is what I believe. Like,
yeah.
This person, even like down to the smallest thing of like, I don't trust that person.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why? I trust that person. I think they're extremely trustworthy.
Yeah, it's kind of like when, like I think as we've gotten older, like somebody doesn't like a person that you like, and it's like, well, I don't have to not. I can like that person.
Yeah.
Even if you don't like that person.
But younger, it wasn't that way.
No, it was not that way. Like if you didn't like somebody, then I decided I don't like that person either.
Yeah.
And then whatever your belief was your belief. And if you believed in it enough, then I'd be like, oh, that makes super sense.
For sure. Or maybe it's something that your parents taught you. And like your parents taught you this because they believed in it. And you inherently, majority of people love their parents. Like my parents are my heroes.
Yeah,
just
they're
because
super
they're
right.
my parents.
They're always right.
So they're right.
Right.
And you just get told, well, this is what I was taught.
Right.
Someone tells you that's wrong, that's like offensive.
It's kind of like when you're talking to a younger person and you say something to them and they go, well, my parents said this. And then it's like the battle of the beliefs, you know, and this other person's got 15 years of teaching to that person than you have. So you're incredibly wrong.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. We used to tell guys, like, when we were growing up, like, I remember saying things like, Didn't your parents teach you this or something like that? And it never went well.
Yeah.
It's like your example of telling someone to calm down in an argument. Like if you bring someone's parents into something that they taught them and you're like, no, that's wrong.
Right.
Game over.
So this is and we don't have to dive down a bunch of rabbit holes in terms of time, but like isn't that what's crazy when you have like trying to sway? It's like I always thought of it as like old school coaching, right? So we're just picking athletic field here, you know, and you look at like nowadays, like we argue in the sports world like technology or metrics, which everybody wants, but at the same time, like metrics serve such a high purpose for coaching. And then you look at, well, people who have been coaching for 40 years, they're just like beyond, they weren't part of the metric building system. So like they weren't part of the process of even establishing the stats or the science that we have now inside coaching. So they'll look at that and go, no, like that's not right. Like I always think it's interesting, I guess to narrow my point down, is how can we teach a specific skill in a sport and be like so off, like so different coaching theories and different generations? Like how come a younger generation teaches it incredibly different than an older generation? But then the older generation's like, well, you guys are completely wrong. And then the younger generation looks up at the older generation and goes, you guys are so wrong. And then it's just a battle of like beliefs, right? When in reality, like old school values or old school morals, like that should hold true. We've proven that since humans have been on Earth. You know, that's why you have like the Bible is like essentially a list of rules that we've lived on for thousands of years.
This is how you're a good person no matter what.
Right. And like that stuff is like a belief system that holds strong and has withstood the test of time. Whereas now your like beliefs on like, if you're not willing to get outside of the box or being open-minded, then you get to what Nolan's question was, is you just end up defending this out of ego. To my original point, you defend it out of like, you can't be wrong, you know, and that becomes your own personal problem.
Love it.
Okay, sure. There we go. Sorry, Dad. I'll probably get my old man probably bark at me about that because he always barks at me about coaching.
You sound good today. You're in good voice today.
I'd Dunn Brothers.
National chain.
Yeah, national chain. Found that out today. Very cool. Go ahead. The best burritos. Literally the best burritos I've ever had. Best breakfast burritos. They're very small, but they're just enough before a workout. Go ahead, Noel.
How do you know which of your memories are genuine and which have been altered or made up?
How do you know which of your memories are genuine and then which have been made up? I have an answer to this, but
go ahead.
Do you want me to take it?
Yeah.
So I always think this is crazy to me because when you're younger, when you perceive like memories, right, and you think about your life and then you tell stories, like there have been times, this is very hard for me, but I've had times where I've shared stories that I've shared so often, and I know that it's not, like that didn't actually happen like 15 years ago, but I've like continued to share that story.
Sure.
That now it's like my memory of it, it's almost like I've spent all this time manipulating the memory to be how I wanted to perceive the memory. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Whereas then you like, and I think a lot of that is the human desire to like want an emotional reaction or want someone to have self-pity on you or help you like feel better about it, because then you'll look back at stories and be like, oh no, like genuinely that wasn't really that big of a deal, like that was just like a moment that something happened, but you build it up as like it's this epic memory and you just amplify the story as best as you can.
Do you think it actually changes your emotional connection because you're a storyteller? So do you think it actually changes your emotional connection to that memory?
Yeah, that goes back to the theory of, I always tell people, would you rather hear a great story with a true part or a true story with a great part?
Sure.
You know, people want to hear great stories. And as long as there's a little bit of truth in there.
Maybe that's why you're such a good storyteller, is you actually think what you're saying is true, even though you know it's not fully true.
Well, it's true from my belief, like the last question we just had.
Sure.
It's true from how I saw the story.
I think you can become fond of a memory, but I think you're certain of the emotions that you felt
in that memory.
In that memory.
So you are genuinely attached to that memory.
I believe so. But I'm an emotional person. Mm-hmm. I'm a wear it on my sleeve type of human. Mm-hmm. So like if I'm telling a story and I'm buffering it or I'm changing it because I want it to be a story, deep down I know what that means to me. Now maybe I'm putting on a show.
Right.
Maybe I'm trying to make sure that I'm trying to make a new memory and a new story. But there's nothing funnier than telling stories like from college baseball.
Right.
About like, we still tell a story about my sophomore year, I couldn't hit.
Yeah.
And we were watching Man on Fire, which is not a good bus movie. It just wasn't. It didn't make any sense. It's aggressive. Like small TVs.
It's aggressive.
and it was skipping. And
Oh,
they
man.
hated us. You know, we had probably lost a doubleheader.
That's why you're watching Man on Fire.
Yeah, we
Yeah.
lost a doubleheader. They're proving a point. We were watching whatever they wanted to watch.
Yeah.
And I kind of got the nudge, like, hey, you got to go up there and you got to say something. So
Captain
I'm like,
Gleggs.
yeah, get up there. And I'm like, hey, Mac, Sean McDermott was the coach playing the movie at the time. And I'm like, hey, Mac, you think we could get something else on the TV? And he literally screamed at me, stood up in the front seat, and was like, you're a $170 hitter. You got enough to worry about. Go sit down, hero. And at the time, obviously, I remember that I was like, I can't believe this guy did this to
Yeah.
me. Like, I know that, but now it's hilarious to tell it.
Yeah.
And, like, it's a story that in more detail, every time I see my college buddies, I tell.
See,
but
when
I
I-
know that memory was a negative memory that I've turned into a positive.
So also with I guess to what my point was is when I hear you tell that story, because I've heard that story before, I think of it as like this guy stood up and pointed at you, and you like fell to the ground while he's screaming at you, and he's just yelling, and everyone on the bus goes, you know, and like you can point that picture. It's like movies are made, right? Like people make movies that are incredibly not accurate, but the point gets driven home and it draws at your emotions. So when you become a storyteller off your memories, you amplify it, and it's almost like a real-time movie. And that's kind of what I'm saying. Like, because that is what happened. Like, that is the story. But then when you share that to a crowd of people, like, in that moment, was it actually that nuts? Do you know what I'm saying? But you want to share the story to portray that, because then I get your point, for one, and then I get to enjoy it. Like, imagine if you just went like, yeah, we lost 2 games. Like, Sean McDermott.
yelled at me.
Yeah, he yelled at me. Like, he just was like, dude, you're hitting a $170. Like, clean it up, hero, get back there. Like, no, we're watching this movie.
Yeah.
Like, if you said that to me, I would just go, okay, nice.
Doesn't work.
It doesn't work. And
But-
humans love stories.
Can you repeat the question one more time?
So how do you know which memories are genuine and which are altered or made up in your head?
Okay.
So how can you tell the difference if a memory is like actually happened or you made it up in your head?
Yeah, I think we went. I think me and Harvey both take a lot of pride in our storytelling. So I
Sure.
think we heard it a little differently than it was asked. Like, I think all of your memories are genuine. Like,
Yeah,
I
'cause
think
you
all
experienced
of them.
them.
You experienced them. You're the only one who knows what that made you feel.
Yeah, you're the only person that's experienced your life.
Yes, but the way that you portray those memories is completely different than you actually have of them.
Yes, very often.
Yeah, like I actually thought of that bus story as a fond memory until you asked that question. I told it, and I was like, that sucked at the
Yeah.
time. Like, I remember getting yelled at now and being like incredibly embarrassed.
Right.
So yeah, I think that all of them are genuine. I think you truthfully know all your memories.
It's genuine, but it's your generosity. We'll go with that one.
Yeah, because maybe it's like if you were talking about a relationship,
Mm-hmm.
maybe to you were in a relationship that you were in love with that person, it was great, and they didn't feel the same way about you. So their memory of that
Is way
exact
different.
thing is different.
Yeah.
But to you, it is genuine. It's your memory.
Yeah, I like that. I like that answer a lot. I'm sticking with that answer. And when I get asked that question, and you know, when the next time I get bashed in front of the boys about my stories, I'm going to give them that answer and go, look, this is it's my damn story.
Yeah.
You sit there and keep staring. You decide to stare at me.
Yeah.
You know,
You're making a memory right now.
You're
because
making a
of me.
memory. Yeah, there you go. You're welcome. You got anything else?
That's a coffee buzz.
That's a coffee buzz, huh? So there we go. Coffee Buzz Friday. The M&M boys, we were chirping about the winter, but we are on our way out. When we get into that springtime, it's just going to be good stuff. We got Dave Fisher, who's playing playoff hockey right now. He's getting ready to come home. Hopefully they win the cup. We got Pete in the offseason.
What kind of cup are they playing for? What's it called?
The Stanley Cup. I don't know. Do you know what it is?
No, I don't. That's why I'm curious. We'll let you guys know what that trophy's called. It's probably extremely funny.
Yes. Yeah, he plays over in Austria. The fish feeder, the guy's a legend. He's part of the crew. And we got the crew members. The boys are going to start coming home here for their off seasons. So we'll get a lot of coffee buzzes with them. But obviously, as the M&M boys finish up our winter training, we get to start rocking these out all the time too. Should be pretty interesting. Nolan has been begging for the last year and a half to get on the camera. And so just like anything, it's a step-by-step process. We got tiptoe in, and I think that his generous nervousness and nervous system, we had to put a lion mask on him and get him used to this feel. This is a high-intensity environment.
It felt good having you, bud.
Thanks, man. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, no worries.
Cheers.